Hello and welcome everyone to the latest episode of the Responsibility podcast with me, Charlie Martin. Join us each week as we learn from experts on how to build our startup, the Anti-Greenwash Charter, as successfully and ethically as possible. So today I was delighted to be joined by another fantastic guest in Alina Arnelle. Alina is the Chief Sustainability Officer at Because. They are a SaaS platform specializing in ESG disclosures, GHG quantification and sustainability strategies. She's got an amazingly interesting background, though, in terms of the pathway that's led her to working in sustainability and these senior sustainability roles, starting in the fashion industry and then involving a fairly significant pivot during that stage of her career, which we go into during the show. Alina's got some really fascinating thoughts, really, on approaches that organizations can take to truly embedding kind of sustainability within everything that they do, and how platforms like Because can facilitate smoother approaches to reporting and compliance to enable real sustainability innovation. So for anybody that wants to learn a bit more about how one of these platforms can help and support that side of things in terms of sustainability, I highly recommend listening to the show and checking out Because. So just want to say a big thank you to everyone for listening in. As always, if you've got any thoughts or questions, please do feel free to share them with us via the appropriate channels. Thank you again for listening. Alina, thank you so much for giving up some of your Wednesday morning to join us for an episode. We obviously spoke, I think it was a good few months ago, perhaps now. It feels like everything's like flashed by. Seasons have changed, but we've got you here. We've got you on. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Charlie. It's really a pleasure to be here and looking forward to a fun conversation together.
Indeed. And Alina, let's kick things off. As you well know, and this is the bit that I get like not way too interested. You can never be too interested in the guests that you've got coming on, but let's start with you and let's really unpick your past a little bit if we can. We're always really keen to hear about, obviously, your background relating to your commercial and corporate life and experience, which I know for a fact is fascinating, going to be interesting for people to hear about. But specifically, I want you to touch upon those kind of ethical, responsible kind of considerations, if you like, that have influenced your decision making. And feel free to go back like really far if you want. Like we literally have had guests who have gone, it was the lemonade stand at the age of 8, and I was, getting 50p's for my lemonade, and I thought, oh, that's organic lemonade. Maybe that should be, I should be able to charge 75p. We've had other people who maybe start a little bit later, but feel free to kick us off wherever feels right.
Good, sounds great.
So over to you. Take us back. Where do we start?
Okay, great. So where do we start? Yeah, my name is Alina, and I'm originally from Latvia, a very small country that maybe a few people don't even know, don't have on their radar. But interestingly enough, I don't feel like I'm actually from there, since I've lived abroad most of my adult conscious life. And I've moved away for the first time when I was 16. And when my international life started, I did an exchange year in Switzerland, which completely changed my life. And since then, I got the, as we say, hook in the lip for living an international life and looking for everything that, wanting to experience everything that life might bring, because I discovered it's much wider than what my childhood had offered, what my country had offered. So it was really like I had tasted the candy, so I wanted more. And then since then, I was living abroad in France, in Italy, again in France, in Ukraine, in the US, in the UK as well, in Denmark, in Sweden, in Finland. So my life has been taking me all over the place. And how so? Because initially I wanted to become a fashion designer, actually, because I have this huge artsy side to me, and I wanted to embrace it, as dangerous as it was. My parents have always been saying, like, are you sure you want to do this? Because it's really, poor artist's life is not fun. As glamorous, as bohemian as it sounds, you might want to rethink your choices. But I was very set on the fashion design pathway, because I thought, but no, it's art, it's commercial, it's it can be a business, it can be creative, yet it can lead to interesting opportunities. So I was very, very much set on that, and I did pursue a degree in fashion design. First started in Italy, then I understood that maybe the French couture side of things is more appealing to me. So I did move to Paris to study at ESMOD, which is actually one of the first. It is the first school in the world for fashion design. So I was
Mhm.
very honored that I could be part of that journey and have that experience, and it was amazing. I mean, I loved every second, every minute of it. I was living my best life. And I was, yes, I'm specializing on couture. So my work then started off with working for a small fashion brand in Latvia, and partially, yeah.
I'm sorry, Alina. I know you're in full flight, but just so that I can picture the chronology of this,
Yeah,
you're 16 and you went and experienced that first taste
yeah.
of life abroad, which was Switzerland. Where are you now? What age are we at
I am
when you're
now at
like,
my first study year, basically. Well, study years, 2 years in Italy, then study
okay.
years, 2 years in Paris, and then we're at my first experiences of actually putting that super passion and love for the trade, for the trade into practice.
And out of interest, where did the passion for art and for fashion, where did that, and obviously the opportunity that you thought, oh wait, there is a commercial opportunity here. I know your parents were very much not seeing the commercial opportunity at that stage or warning you against it, but when did that kind of solidify? Was that post your experience of some of the rest of Europe, or was that something that was ingrained in you from a very early age?
I would say the artsy part was always there
Mhm.
because I enjoyed painting all my life. I enjoyed making my dolls some dresses, as little girls do. I've always loved being dressed up nicely. I've always, it always put an emphasis on that. And I don't know, it was never kind of a career choice because I never knew it existed as a career from such a small country.
Mhm.
Like perspective, we never speak about it. We usually speak about doctors, lawyers, the typical. All due respect to those professions really needed, but we always speak about them. We less so speak about the the paths untrodden in the country. So it's more
Creative vocations, would
creative
you say?
vocations were considered a bit more like a privilege. It's like a privilege
Mhm.
for the rich, and I come from a middle class family, so it was never on the radar to advertise them kind of as
Mhm.
options. So yeah, once I think my exchange year in France when I was in my last year of school
Mhm.
changed my life because it was just 50 minutes away from Paris in Le Mans, and the school was this massive castle, and everybody was super super fashionable. And I discovered that they have these different classes. One is for economics, one is for arts, one is for biology, and I was of course obviously drawn towards the arts. And there I discovered, hey, but people can choose. They can have a career where they actually their hobby becomes a career.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's when I thought, why not me? That's where when this thought in my mind thought, why not me? Why am I stopping myself? I want it. I really, really want it.
How
And then
incredibly liberating.
yeah,
Are you 18? You're 18, 19, that sort of age at this stage?
yes, yeah, exactly, yeah, 18.
Okay. Sorry, you're in full. I'm just fascinated by thinking through the kind of influences, if you like, and again,
Yeah,
as you've described, you've got a fairly unique pathway, if you like. But please go back to
that's also
when.
interesting for me to reflect on how did I get there actually? How did I get and yeah, so during my last year, I was starting to explore, okay, how does one become an artist? Because at first I wanted to become an artist. I thought that's the same as fashion design. I thought they were just artists, painters who then do clothes. But then more and more, I started looking into opportunities of studying and started to visit universities, some in Paris, some in Florence, in Rome, in London, because I thought if I'm going into it, I'm going in right. I'm doing the best schools. And yeah, so through this exploration, through the research, I just discovered what are the options, what are the best schools, what are the fees, and so on. And so the choice fell on Florence, which was extremely lucky choice because yeah, it's a city where Renaissance, right, rebirth of our culture as humankind began. living in that gorgeous city, surrounded by all this beauty, surrounded by fashion designers, surrounded by artists. It was just like, oh my God, yes, I really hit the jackpot with my choice. So I was really thinking, yes, this is it. And then, as said, switching to the first and top three best schools in the world in Paris and doing couture, I was just like, oh my God, can it get any better? I was so grateful for my life in that timeline, and I'm really grateful to my parents that they like allowed me to do that and helped me, supported me in this journey. But then, yeah, but then reality.
Was there, sorry, Lee, I'm going to jump in. Was there a slight sense with your parents? Obviously, initially it was very much, Alina, you're bright young woman, like doctor, lawyer, etc., and you're thinking, oh, I've got this different pathway over here that perhaps was less trodden, as you alluded to.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did your folks sort of realize that you had sort of, successfully trodden that sort of less trodden path, if you like?
I think they understood that. Well, my mom particularly understood that when I was just, there was no space for discussion. And I was just thinking, you know what? If you're not going to support me, I'm just going to make it on my own. And she understood, okay, I'd rather support you than do something that's not healthy or overwork yourself and stuff like that. So I think she just understood from my narrative, my behavior. There's no room for discussion. It's a done deal. We're going in this. We're doing this.
I love that. I love that. I have to admit, on the brief experiences that we've had on different various calls, I can see that. I can see that there's that sort of absolute drive and determination and insistence. So I can imagine sort of late teen, early 20-year-old Alina being very insistent that yes, this is the path I'm trying to. But sorry, I interrupted you again in full flight. You were getting us towards, I think, perhaps the sort of pinch me moment of it being in Paris, being at the number one school of from a fashion perspective, and thinking, wow, this is amazing. What's next?
What's next exactly? And then I actually found you had to do an internship when you graduated in order to attain the diploma at the end. And I found this little fashion brand who was partially situated in Riga, in Latvia, where I come from, and also in London. So I saw this opportunity to kind of feel safe, to get also all around experience, which you wouldn't get in a big brand, maybe in Paris or Rome, but yet be exposed to that fashion world, yet not kind of cutting myself completely off that. And that went really well. I really learned a lot. It gave me all the confidence that I needed to think, okay, but my next step now is a big brand. Let's go. Well, it wasn't as easy as I thought it would be, because this is when the reality of the fashion industry started to kick in, that you really have to come from this super rich family who is very well connected. The parents who are customers to big brands, their kids do have a priority because they do have that personal relationship with the fashion house and so on. So it's much easier to get an internship, much easier to get this entry level position. So that was a bit of a struggle, I must say. I must admit, it's not easy. It's not as the glamour, kind of the shimmer, started to dim a bit. Nevertheless, I did make it through. I did everything from short-term contracts to being freelance. Particularly the brightest years of my fashion career were when I was living in London and I was freelancing for 2 years for different fashion designers. And this is where I was, again, living my best life. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating well. Had zero work-life balance. Like what is even that? I didn't have friends, but I was living my passion. I was living through it. And I was working for Peter Pilotto, Marika Tranzu, for Alexander McQueen. And I was just like, oh my God, like I am here. I made it, which was so satisfying. Yet I understood this little thought in me started to appear like, hey, I am tired. I'm getting tired. And at that stage, I am 26, 27. And I already have some experience in my pocket, of course. I already have my network and it's all fine. And then that pivotal moment came when we were preparing for the Fashion Week, for Paris Fashion Week, for Alexander McQueen. And I was sewing for them as a couturier for their haute couture collection. And I was sitting there and we were discussing it with other seamstresses, couturiers, like, how is it? Somehow we went into this existential conversation. And then the girls were saying, you know what? if I were your age, I would run. I would run as fast as I can and not look back. Because we are now 40, 45. We cannot. We have families, we have responsibilities, we have mortgages. You are young, you are bright. Run. Don't stay here. This is not worth it. And I was like, why are you doing this? Why are you trying to just get me out? Do you want your friend in, or what's happening?
Yeah.
I was really very confused, but yet that kind of planted a seed in my mind. Hey, yeah, but if I think about it, I'm tired. Yes, there's no end to this. Every fashion week is going to be the same, if not worse, in terms of workload and demands. Maybe I should really think about it, because can I do that? Can I last? Because also, as you are in these fashion studios, and I've been to many, you hear these horror stories. You know, studio responsibles are having a heart attack, or I don't know, designers are committing suicides because it's too much pressure, it's too much work. You don't have the perspective anymore because you're just tired. You're just so tired that you don't even have this mind space to have a perspective anymore.
And was that, Alina, was that this is super interesting. Was that the main focus of that kind of warning, if you like, that you got from those other senior seamstresses, that essentially the burnout that was pending, if you like, if you went down that road, that was the key focus for them in terms of the
Yes,
warning they shared with you?
yes,
Okay.
that was
Yeah.
the key focus. And also, they said, if you want to have your own brand, do you see how much money is invested in this? Do you really think you can have it, or do you want to have a little teeny tiny little store in the corner of a street? Would that make you happy? Like, they just made me think. They just made me reflect on my choices, and how that can be, how my life can be forecasted with the choices that I have made. And yeah.
It must have been an amazing moment. That, I mean, you're going to come on to talk about like the implications of that moment, but you've from the way you've described it, you've worked so hard. You've worked with
Mm,
such like absolute kind of fixed line sort of direction, if you like, in terms of
yes.
this is what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to do it, and you've nailed it. And you've had that moment in London where you go, I've done it. Like, this is amazing. And then to have that kind of reality of the decisions that you've made up to that point questioned like that, like, how
Mm.
did that make you feel?
Kind of stupid. I felt I felt like naive in a way as well. Like, did I miss something? Did I miss the memo? Did I not hear the warning? Did I not see the warning signs on the way? Or also perhaps, or are they naive? Are they jealous? Are they stupid?
Mm,
You have all these cited because you don't know, because maybe they are really jealous that they see that I have the energy, the passion, but maybe they have lost it. Maybe they see that I'm more talented, or maybe me, maybe my ego is too running too high right now. Maybe I'm not as talented, maybe I'm not as good for this industry. Maybe people behind me are much better. It made me just reflect,
mhm,
and also to think, okay, hey, this is the highest point that I can get without attracting more investment towards my career and so on. And then I thought, is it worth the struggle of pursuing to becoming my own, like, to becoming a full standing fashion designer, towards having my own brand? And then I thought, maybe it's all not that worth it. Maybe it's all not that beautiful from the inside. It's like behind the scenes, it's not as beautiful behind the scenes. It's very toxic. And I've also seen, of course, how mean people are towards each other, how unvalued people are, how like interns slave away for years, and they are grateful for that until they even get a job offer. That's what was also one of the reasons I went freelance, because nobody wanted to hire me full time. I see that as a blessing in a way. But also, I was told, yes, you're not homosexual man. You're a woman who will potentially have a family. So what's the point of hiring you if we can hire someone who has the same perspective as you on a female or male body, but will never go on maternity leave? And for me, that was just like,
so so
what?
so Alina, was that explicit? I mean, was
That
the
was explicit. That was somebody who told me, I'm not going to hire you because you are going to go, you're going to have a family at one point, and you're in your soon productive years, right, of your life. So no, not happening.
and this is in what,
Like
20
to
London?
2010, 2011, I don't even know anymore.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I don't even. There is no question or comprehension to come back to you on that. Just astonishing.
I know, it's a shocker for me too. And then I actually went to Paris, went to the another pivotal moment there. that we were the last week we were in Paris, but I have never slept in that hotel that they had booked for me because we were just at the studio. And at one point, I asked, "Hey, can I have a nap?" Because I was not sleeping for a week by then. And before that, maybe 2 hours a week, a day, like 24/7 time. 2 hours that maybe I was sleeping. The rest I was working away. So I asked, "Can I go for a nap? Because I am dying here. I
Yeah.
can't anymore." And they told me, "If you walk out now, don't bother coming back." Because will have another person here in 5 seconds after you leave. So if you want this, you're staying. And I was like, okay, fine, I'm staying. But the um, the kind of the thought process started to race away because the next day I remember that moment while I was at the hotel freshening up, and I remember I opened my eyes and I'm seeing spots. I'm literally seeing spots in front of my eyes, and my hands hurt so much, all my joints hurt so much that I cannot even bend them. And then I thought, okay, this is really impacting my health right now. And I'm 27. I don't want to die with 35. I don't want to be a casualty for someone else's dream. And for me, that's a non negotiable. I am living my own best life. I am not going to slave away for a designer's dream and just be another peg in the system. So that was a very pivotal moment. And after that fashion week, I actually came back home to London where I was living at the time, took a bottle of wine, opened my computer, and started Googling what do people do to be happy in their profession. That was exactly my Google. I will remember that on my deathbed. And I was just
and
going by
what came, and what came up?
all sorts of things. So architecture. I don't know. Art again came up. Then it was B. What's B? Biology came up. As I remember, my thought process, biology. Then C was chemistry. It was different. Different stuff, consultancies. It was so basically, and I thought, okay, but what do I also like besides Googling all of that? What do I like? What do I enjoy? And I thought dolphins. I love dolphins, and like the whales, and ocean. I love water. I love the element of water, and I thought, how happy would I be to just be in nature all the time? How happy would I be supporting the nature systems? How happy would I be protecting them? Sustainability was kind of an up and coming topic, like now 12, 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started Googling, okay, oceanographer, hey, that's a profession. Then, okay, biologist, environmentalist, all these things started coming up. And then I thought, okay, cool. What do I do to get a job there? I started looking, and all of them, of course, being scientifically oriented, they all required at least a bachelor in science. And then I thought, okay, this is expanding. This change in my life, this thought is expanding. That out. You know what? No, I'm going all in. I'm going to go for a bachelor's. I'm going to go for a master's, even a doctorate. Maybe I'm going to start. And again, I'm gonna. There's a tendency, if you hear it, that if I'm going into something, I'm doing it the best way that I can.
I think anyone that's listening can very much understand that, Alina. I think if you decide to point the ship in that direction, it's going in that direction.
It's
Yeah.
going in that direction, and
Yeah.
nothing's redirect. No winds are gonna change my course.
No.
So I decided that I want to do environmental science because I thought it's a great balance between chemistry, physics, geology, geography, biology, everything, all and earth sciences. And I thought, my thought behind that was also, I don't want to be a scientist. I don't want to be locked up in a lab. I never wanted that. I always said, okay, I want to be that Greenpeace and Chanel, because the industry was so toxic towards me, towards so many people in terms of social impact, environmental impact, that I want to come back and I want to make it better. I'm not quitting for a reason. I want to quit to come back stronger and to make it better. Because yeah, if nobody does it now, then why not me? Because I've always been inspired by these people who have these unusual biographies where nothing nothing stops them. They just want it and they go get it. Why not me? If anybody, why not me? Anybody should do it. I volunteer. So I thought I would volunteer to help to pivot the corporate structures of big companies to make them better, at least maybe on an environmental impact. So that's why the narrative of me going towards environmental science, because I thought the social aspects are very important, don't get me wrong, but they're easier to comprehend, they're easier to understand. The science behind why the oceans are acidifying and why the climate is impacting our average temperatures is much harder to understand and to link towards our ongoing problems. So that's why environmental science, and that was amazing. I mean, best, well, I've said that about fashion as well, but this was basically on the same level of enjoying my studies.
Mhm.
It was everything new. It was explained why we breathe air, why clouds are formed, what is climate, why animals are there and not there. It was so fascinating to actually understand your home in a bigger sense, like our planet.
Mhm.
It was insanely interesting. It was so, I was spending days in books. I wanted more because it wasn't enough. Um, of course, always with that thought of me coming back as a corporate sustainability person because it was always there. And then I
And Alina, can I just quickly ask, when you say that there was always that inspiration to come back, I love that because there's a sense of when people are spat out of an industry, and there can be that either that sense of victimization and
Mm,
victimhood, and oh poor me, look what happened to me, but to come out and go, right, I'm going to take that experience, I'm ultimately going to turn it around, and I'm going to come back and better um, the industry in light of my experience, and why not me? I think that's so like genuinely inspiring, and for people
thank
that are
you.
out there that are in a similar situation, maybe where they're sat there working in their industry and sector thinking, God, there's nowhere out here, but I don't want to feel like I've become a victim of my industry. Like, there are pathways, there are narratives that can evolve
Mhm.
and develop, that you can come back and change that piece, that story. But let me ask, was it always in your mind at this stage, when you talk about big corporates and going into corporate sustainability, was it about going back to the fashion industry and looking to sort of address the ills from an environmental perspective within the fashion industry, or was it a broader piece at this point? Had your eyes been opened to a wider impact that you might be able to have?
Now, at that point, completely honestly, it was purely the fashion industry because
Okay.
I was a bit pragmatic about it. I thought I have all this experience in my pocket. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to just throw it out. And I do love the industry. I mean, it's the most gorgeous one out there. We're creating something that inspires people, that creates confidence in people. It's our daily art that we can wear and live
Mm-hmm.
in. So I love it, and that's why I never wanted to become like a martyr because I took responsibility on myself to make my life better, and I didn't blame the industry, but I saw the fallbacks of that industry. So that's why I was like, I'm coming back better, and I'm making you better alongside.
Mm-hmm.
But as
Okay.
you know, my motto in life is if you want to change something, start with yourself or look at yourself. So that's why I started with myself. I started the renovation with myself.
Honestly, we've been talking for about 26 minutes now, and
Like,
you have literally come up with some absolutely brilliant headlines for titles for shows, perhaps second shows, third shows. So I love that we're getting such a really deep and intriguing insight into you and your mentality, which is, as I say, it's really genuinely inspiring. Let me run you out. We have done the classic thing of just blitzing through like a big chunk of our conversation today. But talk me through, if you can, like at this point at which environmental sustainability became a core focus from an
mhm.
academic perspective. What then happened next in terms of corporate professional decisions, if you like,
Yeah.
that ultimately led you to the work you're doing now at Because.
Yes. So basically, for my master's, I had moved to Sweden because
Mhm.
I understood that for sustainability, I actually have to be in one of these leading countries. So it was the Nordics. The choice was on the Nordics. It's either Finland, Sweden, Denmark, or Norway. Well, Norway less so because they're less in that sense. But so it was Denmark, Sweden, Finland that I was really considering. I got into a master's program in Sweden, and once upon graduating there, it was a hydrology master's. I decided that okay, hey, Sweden, fashion is there. The corporate opportunities are there. They're very much on sustainability. So and the Swedish culture is also super close to my own culture. So
Mhm.
I thought there's no cultural shock there. So let's just go. And the first initial step was not easy because I actually literally had to knock on the doors for them to hire me. And my first job was in NGO because I thought that NGOs is the way through because NGOs have this value based work and they live for the dream. And I was in Stockholm International Water Institute where I was in a project that was working with big textiles brands from Sweden, from Stockholm, where we worked with their factories in Southeast Asia and tried to make them better. And then I thought, no, NGOs, no, that's not the pace that I want. No, that's too slow. That's too much kind of blah blah around it. Not enough actions going on. So that no, I need a private sector. So then I found a job in an e-commerce as head of sustainability, and I've had a few of those roles in various companies as head of sustainability. But then I enjoyed them, and don't get me wrong, it was great. It was great to build up sustainability from scratch in each of those companies. It was well received and so on. But then I also realized, hey, I'm struggling here because I'm alone. Usually, sustainability person, if you're not, I don't know, H&M or IKEA, where they have a lot of resources, you're usually alone, and you're basically your own company within a company, because sustainability is, if the company's, if the basically the product is not built on sustainability as a core, you have to rebuild, you have to restructure your operations in order to make them sustainable. And in order to do that, you need resources. In order to do that, you need to convince the management team. And thankfully I wasn't on the management teams, but yet again, I had to always pitch it to the CFO, to the CEO, to the supply chain directors. I mean, I always had to pitch and pitch and pitch. And I realized, okay, sure, even if I get the resources, there are not enough tools out there. There are not enough solutions. There are requirements, there are targets, there are goals, there are methodologies, there are initiatives, but the tools are not there. They're really there. We're lacking. We're really lacking in that sense. And I knew that I would not get further where I am in my career without actually, like, I'll be dependent on other people. I thought, no, this also has to change. I have to be the solution. I wanted to be the solution. I wanted to be the change maker. And then I stumbled upon the ad from the company where I'm now, because where they were looking for a chief sustainability officer for building software that would help sustainability managers, head of sustainabilities and companies to manage sustainability data. And at that point, the company was very young yet still, and the direction was not yet chosen in which industry to go. So we were thinking to be quite industry agnostic. And of course, me from the fashion industry, we thought maybe that could be an interesting direction to take, maybe among other directions that we were exploring. And and the team was very young. I mean, full of passion, full of drive to make this world a better place through a solution. And I thought, tech, oh my God, it's also so modern, it's so interesting. You know, where are we? We're digitalizing our lives. We are basically, cyborgs already, right? So why not learn it? Why not learn it? I thought it was a great way of keeping with the pace of how our societies are developing, and also having that great opportunity of developing a solution that will help people like me who are struggling in the corporates to make a change. So yeah, so that's how I am here.
Alina, you've done a fantastic job of summarizing what is a very varied and deep kind of period, if you like, in terms of experience that you've been through. So thank you for that. I was going to just press you on that though, in terms of your experience working as a head of sustainability in your kind of isolated experience, if you like, small team or non-existent team,
Non-existent team.
trying to manage these things. What was it in particular about Because's kind of software solution and the sort of the objective for it that aligned with your experience of working in those roles previously? What was it? Time saving? Was it just being able to justify ESG investment? What were the kind of key pain points that the Because was looking to address?
I would say it's working with data, like it's working with data in the right ways. It's basically understanding, okay, what is the legislation, what are the frameworks out there that are required by the legislation to be used, what are the methodologies that are required to be used by the frameworks to make the data compatible with those, to make the data quality good enough for the legislation then to put a stamp of approval at the audit stage for sustainability reports. Yeah, because that always happening for sustainability reports, always happening to kind of justify the operations and what's happening for companies. And this aligned with me because I saw that so many people were in the companies were wasting so much time on researching why, first of all, why, and But then, okay, I know the why, but oh my God, it's so much. How do I do it? And I always, I don't know, I never struggled with that. I always knew exactly how and why. And there was this platform who was kind of welcoming me with open arms and saying, if you know how and why, there's a platform of like, and we have the resources to do it. So let's work together and do it. And so I thought, yeah, it's perfect. It's great
I
because
love it.
I don't want for people to waste time on knowledge acquisition. I want for them to learn by doing, and by doing, you actually have you're making a change, because by the time you have finished planning, a year has passed and you're again at the next reporting stage, next strategy review. So because you're so slow, you never actually get to creating the impact. You actually never get to the initiatives. You actually never get to, yeah, to inputting those resources or those ideas into life. And I think that's a shame, because most of the sustainability people now, they are basically controllers. They are not
Carrying out compliance and reporting, and
exactly.
essentially carrying out a legal function in many ways,
Yes.
other
Yes.
than an innovation function, which is what sustainability, presumably at the heart of it, is what we need it to be.
Mm.
Well, I have to say, I obviously was aware of Because before, but any of our listeners out there that are sat there looking at, what I guess querying that, how much of this sort of innovation are we actually allowed to implement, considering the limited resource that we have, that we're having to put into our reporting and our data analysis, etc. And Because might be a solution to enable more of that to happen. If I've not just butchered a
No,
paper.
you're right on.
Let's done the classic thing. In all honesty, with you, it's even extended far beyond the norm of going deep into the conversation without actually touching upon the article that we shared with you before the show. So I think it was Christina Rogers and Andrew Cosgrove at EY who put together this article. Alina, would you mind just kicking off by just summarising that article for our listeners and picking out whatever in your mind were the most interesting, most salient points that you think our listeners should be made aware of?
Yep. So maybe summarizing is a bit of a challenge right now, but the main takeaways that I took from it is basically the conversation, the discussion about how the consumers are confused, or how should they make a right choice, and who is the responsible party in providing that choice. Is it the consumer? Is it the brand? And if it's the consumer, what they should focus on. If it is the company, what should the company prioritize within their business choices, within their strategy, in order to make that happen and make it an easier choice for the customer. So and it was very interesting, because we are actually because we are facing these questions on a daily basis. So in terms of being the company, or advising our companies what they should, our customer companies, what they should do, is basically prioritize. So there were 5 different topics, 5 different directions mentioned in the article of what companies could do. And the one that I like the most is that companies should create value, but value should be based on transparent communication of what sustainability really is for them, and how are they really embedding sustainability into their product or service that they are then advertising or offering to the consumer. So, and I totally agree with that. Companies should be transparent. That's why we also have this sustainability reporting now coming in from the European Union. We have all these changing legislation pieces that kind of nudge the companies towards that right choice of actually creating value through transforming their services or products toward being more sustainable, and actually educating the customer of how that is sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
Then a lot of the conversation, a lot of narrative in the article was also who pays for it.
Mm-hmm.
Always a very important question, because of course, as the article also said, I believe it was more than 48% or so of customers say that they are ready to pay more for sustainable products or sustainable services. But do they really? When faced with a choice,
Mm-hmm.
this tour, for example, I don't know, or this hotel stay will cost you 50 euros, but it's not sustainable. And the same, imagine it's the same level, like 5-star hotel, right?
Mm-hmm.
50 euros here, but then 200 euros here, but you have full transparency in all these green initiatives, green certifications on it. What would you choose? are you sure that you're still ready to pay, that difference, just to have your conscience clear when both options for you as a customer will give you the same experience?
Mm-hmm.
So
It
it
was
was interesting.
It was interesting. I think they refer to it as the intention gap. I think as
Yeah.
and the fact that the evidence, I think from in the article, the research was looked at, is that gap is narrowing.
Yeah.
So over time we are seeing that actually what people say they're going to do and what they actually do in terms of purchasing
Yes.
sustainable solutions is beginning to narrow. Which I have to admit, of all the things I read in that article, I was encouraged by that. We actually did a similar piece of research at the Anti-Greenwash Charter with our partners at Future Build, looking at specifically looking at supply chain decision making in the construction sector. And again, that played out that yes, we would choose the more sustainable, environmentally sustainable option in terms of supplier. I think it was like 74% of the time, something like that, high number. And then the question, literally, when we presented those results in a presentation in London, it was queried like, I want to see what the practical reality of that is. But if it's moving in the right direction, it's moving in the right direction. I want to come back to your previous point there, Alina, when you spoke about transparency. And I think it's transparency in the sense that, as organizations, if we can be transparent about where we're at and then identify the areas where we as an organization can make significant improvements and then build our sustainability strategies around those opportunities. Just touch upon that in terms of the work that you do at Because and how you guys facilitate that ability to be transparent. And I use this term because again it aligns exactly with the work that we're doing at the Anti-Greenwash Charter, which is essentially why we set up the initiative in the first place. Essentially, there's liberation in transparency. As soon as you as an organization are prepared to really open the doors and present exactly where you're at and ultimately where you're good and where you're not so good, it gives you that liberation to really focus then in on those opportunities for growth and development. But again, I'm not here to talk about the Anti-Greenwash Charter. Please just describe how that aligns with the work that you're doing at Because.
Yeah, and I agree with the liberation, right? If you don't lie, if you don't switch, if you don't waste the energy on hiding stuff, that energy is actually can be used for so many good things. And of course, how to know, again, the question then comes up, how do you know which good things you should focus on? Because there are so many ESG topics, subtopics, right, within each pillar. So how do you know where to focus? And of course, as we work with data quite a lot, data usually is the indicator where you should work. But in sustainability, it's a bit different than in finance. In finance, you kind of already, when you are driving an organization, you already have these numbers before you start maybe analyzing them. In sustainability, it's a bit different. It's you have to understand first what topics you have to work with, and then acquire the data, and then go into analytics in order to understand how your strategy should be built. And so how we facilitate that is through a double materiality analysis. We're currently developing a comprehensive tool, where our customers will be able to do a very quick, very pain-free assessment of where they're standing, of their geographies, of their business operation type, in order to understand, hey, where do I even have to focus as a company of this sort? Where do I focus? Because I want to do good, I want to be transparent, but it's just too much. I don't have the resources. Like, let's be honest from the start, I don't have the resources, not the human resources, not the financial resources to work with everything. And so it's very important for companies to understand, to narrow down and not be ashamed of it, because so many think the more we choose, the better we will look. No. And I always compare that with, restaurant menus. When you come to a restaurant, fancy restaurant, a really nice fine dining restaurant will always have less. And the experience is always nicer, isn't it? Don't you agree with me? That it's always nice. Yeah. So that's what I also suggest to our customers, like, choose less, but do good. Focus on the quality. And so we advise for our customers to really start with the main ones. For example, climate change is very important for all of us. Then biodiversity, or I don't know, operational logistical impact is very important. Like, basically emissions are the most important at that stage. Then from a social perspective, of course, human rights. You have to focus on the human rights. And then from the governance pillar of the ESG, it's the business ethics, in my opinion. I mean, those that can vary, but in my opinion, these are the top three, for example, that one company should work with, and then start collecting the data. And that's where we come in. We help companies efficiently gather the data, but also, okay, great, I have gathered the data. Now what? Now I'm living with these, um, maybe not Excel sheets, because they would, for example, have us. They would have the database where they would store them, analyze them, see what is working. But then, of course, the data has to live its best life, and that's also where we help, because without the data, without data exchange, there's really no point of collecting it, and that's because the data has to be used. And we are the sustainability hub, sustainability central station that kind of gathers it in the right way, in the right train, but then
Mhm.
also repackages it, and directs it to the other stakeholders of that initial customer, where the data will actually be used. For example, if we're talking about consumer choices, for us, I can make an example, is that we are the link between hotels, online marketplaces, online travel agencies, and certifications. Because how do we help the consumer to understand, how to make a better choice?
Mm.
We help the companies have the freshest data, so that they can have the freshest kind of stamp of approval on
Mhm.
their initiatives, on their work, operational positive work in terms of sustainability, so that they gain as a company. So they do bring value through the right choices to the consumer, and that the consumer has the ease of choice with the chain of custody of knowing that that information through which they choose the service or product is truthful. So we are the ones who help translate the insane amount of data into practical applications. So we
Mhm.
are, because it's so overwhelming. Sustainability is really overwhelming. It's not just about recycling. It's not just about offsets for when you travel. It's so much more. It's just, those are just the little snowflakes on top of the iceberg. It's not even the tip of the iceberg, because it's just kind of it's a mitigation, but you have to look at the source. So we are the ones who help gather the data and read it and understand it, and then use it in the right way that will benefit you and your customers. Because why I love this company as well, it's for the cause. That's why we're
Mhm.
also called Because, be the cause. And I feel that it helps me personally be that. And yeah.
Sorry, Alina. I feel I could. I tell you what, we should do another show, and I'm just going to go, Alina, over to you, because I don't feel like I need to really ask you any questions at all. I have interrupted you a few times. Um, we're running out of time. I'm really keen to. I think the way that you've introduced and described what you guys are doing at Because has been fantastic. For anybody, obviously that's interested in listening to this to find out more about the platform, like, I'd highly recommend head over onto their website, which will include all of our materials. I just want to ask you, obviously, with your hat on at
Mm,
Because, you're presumably not just looking at kind of the implications of sustainability from your customer's perspective, but you're actually looking at the sustainability initiatives and credentials, if you like, of Because itself as an
mm,
organization. So can you just touch a little bit on that experience and on the
yeah.
things that you're looking to do with the company?
Mm. So it is a very fun experience in that sense, because we are a company with a sustainability product as a core. And then we, of course, we have to walk the talk. We also have to be sustainable. So of course, actually, just this year, in the beginning of the year, we have created our very first own sustainability strategy, where we did the whole double materiality analysis to understand, okay, what will impact us, and and how we will impact the world. So we really went very deep into the discussions, very deep into the research to understand what would make sense for us to work. Because, of course, as a startup, you also have to understand that your most time has to be allocated towards product development, of course, and to easing the pains of your customers. But also, you have to be sustainable as a company in terms of course, financial viability, in terms of attracting the best talent, because talent, especially at this stage of our development, is key. You cannot do it alone. You have to attract people, and you want the best. So the company has to be attractive. And of course, because it's a SaaS, of course, we're using a lot of energy. Our data sources, data. I always forget that word, actually. Where the data is stored, layman terms.
Yeah.
Those big data centers, they require a lot of energy. So kind of I really and with the big support of the team. And that's a big difference of working in a company with sustainability at its core. I don't have to pitch anything. This is so nice. Like everybody understands why. It's just, okay, let's do this. Or when can we do this? What is the first initiative that we do? So currently we're actually at the stage where we're merging our overall risk assessment with our overall financial assessment of our opportunities and impacts and so on, and embedding sustainability into that. So we're really walking the talk in so to understand what makes sense in terms of initiatives, what makes sense in terms of projects, what makes sense in terms of resource investment, both for a company and both for the people, like both for a company as an external service provider and both for the company to be in. So we're really taking this holistic approach, which I couldn't be more proud of that this company is really doing this.
And reflecting back on some of the earlier parts of our conversation when you were talking about the experiences that you had in those working for those e-commerce companies as head of sustainability, and talking about the experience that you went through there, and actually even with the NGO that you worked at, where it's that very, very slow moving ship that there's a frustration at the heart of, like, things not moving quickly enough, and then the other roles that you had where you were having to justify so much. It's, as you say, it must be so refreshing to find yourself working in a company where neither of those two things are happening. Alina, it's been a fantastic conversation. I am 100% going to pitch to you whether or not you'd be happy to come back on for episode 2. We do, though, want to finish today's episode with the magic wand question, which I've spoken to you about before. But let me repeat it to you. Alina, if we were to give you a magic wand and you could change one thing about the corporate world right now, what would that one thing be?
I would change the stubbornness. I would change the stubbornness of people. I would try to balance the attention span of people, being able to listen to how sustainability is actually benefiting the companies in the long term, because there's so much fear towards it. There's so much fear that it's going to steal the resources from other departments, steal the resources from product development or something, that the opportunities are lost. So this kind of stubbornness and fear, if I could, I would take those symptoms away from people, because they don't know that they're stealing from themselves.
That's super interesting. I almost feel like, and again, I'm going to plug it. I'm going to plug Because here to kind of crescendo the show on, which I'm sure you're happy for me to perhaps do so. But that, for me, from my understanding, is the stubbornness I've come across in organizations looking to address this stuff is essentially the fear, if you like, and loathing in many ways regarding the reporting and the compliance side of things, and the fact that that is what sustainability has become. Working with a platform, like yours, like that can facilitate the other side of the coin, which is, as we've alluded to before, that true innovation. And actually, by working with a company like yours, it can alleviate some of that stubbornness and some of that concern over the compliance requirements that sustainability does also have at the heart of. So, I don't know. That would be my sort of reflection back on a very good suggestion on a change that would be good to see. Alina, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been absolutely brilliant to have you on. I really appreciate you giving us your time.
Thank you for having me. It's been great. I hope I did answer all the questions that were of interest, but it's been really a pleasure.
You were brilliant. Thank you, Alina.
Thank you.